The Canadian Polish Congress promotes the awareness of and respect for Poland's history, heritage, and the contribution of Poles to the culture of Canada and the world. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Head Executive Board of the Canadian Polish Congress, we welcome you to this evening's annual ball. My name is Danuta Sokolska, and I, along with Barbara Stadnik, have the honor of being the Masters of Ceremony.
Dobry wieczór Państwu. W imieniu Zarządu Głównego Kongresu Polonii Kanadyjskiej witamy Państwa bardzo serdecznie na dorocznym balu Kongresu Polonii Kanadyjskiej. Nazywam się Barbara Stadnik i razem z Danuszą Sokolską mamy zaszczyt prowadzić dzisiejszy wieczór.
We are honored to have with us this evening many distinguished guests. Among them is our keynote speaker, the Honorable Jason Kenney, Minister of Citizenship, Immigration, and Multiculturalism.
Zatem jeszcze raz po polsku mamy wielki zaszczyt gościć wśród nas wielu dostojnych gości, a naszym honorowym gościem i mówcą jest Honorable Jason Kenney, Minister do Spraw Obywatelstwa, Imigracji i Wielokulturowości.
Jason Kenney was born in Ontario and raised in Saskatchewan, where he graduated from Notre Dame College. He completed his undergraduate studies in philosophy at the University of San Francisco. Mr. Kenney was appointed Minister of Citizenship, Immigration, and Multiculturalism in 2008. He was reappointed to the portfolio in 2011 and given the added responsibilities of Chairman of the Cabinet Committee on Operations and Regional Minister for Southern Alberta. Minister Kenney sits on 3 other cabinet committees: Planning and Priorities, National Security, and Social Affairs. We warmly welcome Minister Jason Kenney to our event and look forward to his address this evening. Minister Kenney.
Dzień dobry, dziękuję bardzo. Thank you very much. Niech będzie pochwalony Jezus Chrystus. Thank you very much. And first of all, my apologies. I normally don't speak before dinner, and this is a good encouragement for me to be brief. First of all, it is a great pleasure to be back amongst friends. I feel really as though I am with family here at the historic Polish Combatants Hall with so many of you. And let me begin by thanking the Polish Combatants Association and their members and executive for welcoming us here. I've known many of these men for several years. They only seem to get younger now as they move into their 90s. And don't they look fabulous? And aren't we proud of them? Thank you, gentlemen, for your hospitality, for your fidelity, for your loyalty to Canada, and for the ongoing living example that you are of the dignity of the Polish people and their fight for freedom through a tragic century. Thank you for having us here again tonight. And it is a great pleasure to be joined by a number of my parliamentary colleagues. I see the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Member of Parliament for Mississauga, Mr. Bob Deckert. Thank you for being here, Bob. Of course, the former President of the Polish Canadian Congress and now Member of Parliament for Mississauga, Mr. Władysław Lizan. A former co-worker of mine and a strong voice for Polonia on Parliament Hill, Member of Parliament for Etobicoke Center, Mr. Ted Opitz. Another man who immigrated to Canada from Europe and knows Polonia very well, a hardworking Member of Parliament from Scarborough, Mr. Cornelio Cezu. Thank you for being here. Hardworking Member of Parliament with whom I've worked on many issues, including Polish issues, Member of Parliament for Parkdale High Park, Ms. Peggy Nash. And I am also very pleased that we are joined, I was, at least unexpectedly for me, by Canada's incoming ambassador to the Republic of Poland, Alex Bogaliskis. Thank you very much. And I understand that Alex's father-in-law, of course, is a long-standing member of the Combatants Hall here, and that this is his 91st birthday. So happy birthday! Reverend Fathers as well, and let me especially thank Madam Teresa Berezowski, the President of the Polish-Canadian Congress, for this kind invitation to join with you on behalf of the Government of Canada and Prime Minister Harper. I first met many of the leadership of the Polish-Canadian Congress in this hall just below about 6 years ago to celebrate the election of my colleague Władysław Zon to the presidency of the Polish-Canadian Congress. And at that meeting, he and other members of Polonia outlined to me many outstanding issues which they'd hoped the Government of Canada would work on. And since then, we have struck up a remarkably productive relationship that has been to the advantage of Canada and Canada's vibrant Polish community. And in fact, it was also about 5 years ago, I think, at the consulate, the Polish consulate in Toronto, that I met Ted Opitz. And we're working together on issues such as restoring veterans' benefits to the Polish combatants. And I encouraged him to think about running for parliament, and that happened as well. So a lot of good things happen here in Polonia. And I want to say that one of the issues that was raised with me by the community at that time was, of course, the ongoing, really, indignity of the visa requirement on Poland. And people, I understood, felt that this was it's almost like a vestige of the Cold War period, when Poles were somehow distrusted and they had to go through this process, and people's grandmothers had to queue up in the winter outside our embassy in Warsaw just to get the visa and come and visit their grandchildren at Christmas time. And it just didn't make any sense for two countries so closely aligned in their values and interests, and certainly made no sense for today's modern Poland. And so we worked very hard on this, and as you know, in March of 2008 announced and introduced the visa exemption for Poland. The United States still hasn't done it. We beat them to the punch, and you know something, we've had some troubles with certain other European countries who shall remain nameless when it comes to visa exemptions. I know our ambassador is very familiar with this. We have had no problems at all with the Polish visa exemption, and thank you for that. And I'll speak a bit more about that. Another one of the issues that was raised with me here in this place 6 years ago was the indignity done to the Allied veterans of Canada during the Second World War, amongst whom the Polish combatants figure so prominently. Because they were comrades in arms for Canadian forces in the liberation of Italy, at the Battle of Ortonio, at Monte Cassino, in the liberation of the Netherlands. Of course, Polish forces were integrated side by side with Canadian forces in the fight against fascism and the liberation of Europe. And so many of these great and dignified men, whether they've been shipped off by Stalin to Kazakhstan, or they have fought out of Britain all the way through to the liberation of Holland, they chose to come to Canada to build a new future. They raised their families here. And then in 1995, they were told that they were no longer considered veterans in Canadian law. And this was, it was explained to me, this wasn't about really benefits, it wasn't about legal technicalities, it was about dignity and respect and the historical truth that those men did just as much as Canadian men in uniform to liberate Europe. And that is why, beginning with the meeting I had with the Polish-Canadian Congress here 6 years ago, we moved forward and successfully restored the veterans' benefits to these great heroes of freedom. At that meeting, I also heard from the community, from Bologna, that there was a sense that maybe the relationship with Poland had been taken for granted and hadn't really been a priority. And so I took these concerns to Prime Minister Harper, who quickly thereafter scheduled an historic bilateral visit to Poland, established a very strong relationship, announced the youth mobility program, the social services agreement with Poland, and had a very moving trip in Poland, which resulted in a reciprocal invitation. It took a few years for tragic circumstances for that finally to be realized, but as you know, Prime Minister Tusk visited Ottawa earlier this year. I sat at the luncheon between he and Prime Minister Harper, and I have to tell you, I have never seen two leaders representing two great democracies see more closely eye to eye on everything. From Russia to the Middle East, the economy, to the situation in Europe, to democratic values. It is more than a coincidence that our flags are both red and white. I could see that there. Isn't it true? This is a wonderful relationship. And so we managed to, and another one of the issues raised with me 6 years ago was the view that, you know, multiculturalism had, over the past decade or two, kind of moved away from its original vision of celebrating what's best about the diversity of Canada, and which was given birth in many ways by the vibrant diaspora communities of Eastern Europe. It was, after all, a proud son of Ukrainian immigrants. Senator Yusik, who first introduced the idea of multiculturalism in the Parliament of Canada, a conservative senator appointed by John Diefenbaker. Of course, it was Stanley Haddach, who 40 years ago was the first minister for multiculturalism. And so Polonia and the other Eastern European communities had a proud place as pioneers of Canada's multiculturalism and the success of our pluralism, but for some reason felt that they were being moved out of the camera focus. Well, we've restored the historical understanding of multiculturalism in Canada. We did that, for example, with the Paul Yusik Award, which recognizes excellence in the promotion of multiculturalism. And I think we're back in touch with the original vision that people like Stanley Haddach had. We've done many other things that I mentioned, including creating this new youth mobility or international experience program. I just met a young man who's here working in Canada today, thanks to that opportunity that young Poles have to get open work permits to come to Canada. And I'm pleased to tell you that it is my intention to increase the quota for the number of young Poles who can come to Canada on those work permits. We are going to ensure that they can, if they want, get 2-year work permits, and that if they work at a skilled job here for 1 year, they will be able to stay in Canada as permanent residents. Canada is open again as much as possible for Polish immigrants. I'm also pleased to tell you that for the first time since, I think, the 1960s, we are establishing a specific path that allows skilled tradesmen, to immigrate. In the old system, the one that we're reforming, if you didn't have a university degree, you couldn't really easily immigrate as an economic immigrant to Canada, and this means we have a lot of people with a lot of university degrees, unfortunately, driving cabs and working in corner stores, in an economy where we need people who are heavy equipment operators and welders and boilermakers, and we know that Poland has a huge reservoir of such brilliant, hardworking, and highly trained tradesmen. And so now we are creating a new trades stream that will open up on January 1st of next year, and I'm looking forward to visiting Poland and working with the PCC to let the good news in Poland that those hardworking tradesmen, if they want a chance to work outside of Poland, they don't have to go to Britain or Ireland. They can come to Canada, and you'll be here to help them succeed. I'm really pleased, excited to announce tonight that for the first time, that apparently since the 1960s, I, as a federal minister of immigration, will be going on a recruitment mission abroad, specifically to encourage people to immigrate to Canada. Now, in our passive system in the past, we didn't do that. We didn't go abroad to actually proactively recruit people. But on October the 5th and 6th and 7th, I will be in Dublin, Ireland, with dozens of employers from across Canada and with representatives of the Polish-Canadian Congress, meeting, amongst other things, specifically with members of the 250,000-strong Polish community in Ireland, brilliant, hardworking, and skilled people who speak English, and we're going to tell them that Canada, they should move a little bit further west, come to Canada, and bring a new dynamism to this country and to its Polish community. And don't you think that's an exciting initiative? So, I just want to say in closing that we've made so much progress together. I could go on, the dinner's waiting. We've made so much progress together on so many issues, and these opportunities, these are new doors that are opening. I think a lot of people in the Polish community have had the sense that the immigration process became difficult for a lot of reasons. These new flexible avenues for immigration to Canada will, I am confident, renew the community here. And that's because we need the hard work, the integrity, the willingness to become good Canadians that has always been reflected in the Polish community. And that allows me to close by just saying thank you. Thank you to the pioneers of Polonia in Canada, whose centenary we just celebrated, of course, with the Kashubians coming to Barry's Bay, visited by Prime Minister Tusk. Thank you to the many waves. Thank you to the combatants. Thank you to those who came before and after 1989. Thank you for always being as Blessed John Paul II said, a sign of contradiction. Thank you for always being renewing Canada's founding values, a belief in personal responsibility, respect for tradition, devotion to family, hard work, personal responsibility. These are the values upon which Canada was founded, and these are values that every Polish immigrant to this country renews with their arrival. And so we look forward to that story, that wonderful story between such two great democracies gaining newfound energy in the years to come with our collaboration. May God bless Canada. Niech żyje Polska. Dziękuję bardzo.